أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام حينا وأدخلنا دار السلام يا حي يا قيوم. We praise and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity. For this specific type of opportunity was seen outside of Masjid al-Aqsa about 600 years ago, where the ulama would come and prepare their notes, where their scribes used to sit next to them, and the people used to stand. And the people of the time of Imam Bukhari, for example, would literally have to listen. So Imam Bukhari would speak, and the person who sat about 50 to 70 students away, the one in the white shirt with the stripes, he used to listen. Then he would go and tell the group that was 60, 70 people away, this is what Imam Bukhari said. And then from him, a person from the group that you told, he would carry that and he would go till the people said it would reach the outskirts of the city. So we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity. So where you see discomfort, I see history. Where you see, man, that guy's stepping on me and dear God, he didn't use deodorant. That is something that the people of the past could be honored to be a part of. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Now I said my only and my final comment that should evoke any type of laughter. In this topic, which my time is already a little bit premature, I want to set a scene very quickly. It's the burning abyss. I need at least 6 minutes of your attention before the burning abyss. So before I tell you about the creatures of hellfire and the types of fire in hellfire and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put 6 creatures on this earth, and there's a small paper I wrote on the 9 types of venom that are found on this earth, before we touch any of that, I need you to do something that was not done before our time. And that was understand the concept of Jahannam as something real. Now we said this, and I kind of touched it in the talk before, that during the time of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, remember she said, if the first ayahs in the Quran said, don't commit zina, then people would, by Allah, people would commit zina. And if the first ayahs were about not drinking, then what would the people do? People would drink. I mean, it really doesn't make much sense. Yeah, some boogeyman's going to come get you. And I want you to know how Jahannam is perceived in other concepts. For example, Bill Maher. You guys know who Bill Maher is? Bill Maher, yeah. Okay, so he used to write comedy. Now then he wrote political satire. Now specifically he writes. What was the name of the documentary he made? Religulous. Okay, so he wrote a movie and he basically mocks the concept that we're about to dictate to you. So when you leave this room, and I'm very excited to hear the Shaykh's explanation of Jannah. I grew up listening to him, during my still studying time, I listened to him growing up when I was in Vegas. So I'm very excited to listen. Speaking of hell, things happen there. So again, speaking of Vegas, very specifically, people there will tell you they're just trying to scare you into your hijab. He's going to tell you about some burning place that you can't see, that doesn't exist, so that you'll grow hair on your face, so that you won't do. And at the end of the day, so that you'll give a little bit of money to the zakat fund, and you'll make. This is how it's portrayed in other religions. That hellfire is portrayed so you won't do what mom and dad don't want you to do. Now, before we go there, we need to do 2 very quick things, and I've spent 3 of my 6 minutes. The first and most important concept of Jahannam is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah 100 refers to the hereafter, the Day of Judgment, in the past tense. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about, in Surah Wal-Adiyah, when He talks about Jahannam or Jannah or the Yawm al-Qiyamah, you know what form He uses? He says about it like it's done already. Why would a couplet be written in the past tense? When you're in medical school, right? If you went to someone and said, well, I'm a doctor. When I was in medical school, what are you inferring to people? How certain it is, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who didn't refer to us in our mother's womb in the past tense, He still spoke about it. You're definitely going to be born from your mother's womb. You're alive now. But the only thing He spoke about in the Quran in the past is the only event that hasn't taken place yet. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember the last talk? Not what's being said, who's saying it? Allah. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Yawm al-Qiyamah, when He tells us and He defines to us, the man who in Surah Ali Imran, this is the one point you take into my talk. The man in Surah Ali Imran, ayah 190, 191, 192. That's Ali Imran, 3rd surah. 190, 191, 192. He goes through this epiphany, all about the hellfire. He says, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. We all see this as some dua, as some guy saying, oh God, you didn't create all of this in vain. No friends, this is an intellectual epiphany. This man walks around 2010 and he goes, 50 cent, he sells drugs, 50 cent rhymes words, talks about fahsha, and people pay him hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay? But he's not following moral law. He's not being moral. Right? Remember what he said about the kids who were getting bullied? It was on his Twitter. He was like, yeah, blank, 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 blank. I can't even say one word of what he wrote. But you can get a gist. Now, that is moral law. Is 50 Cent breaking moral law? Undoubtedly, yes. He breaks moral law. Now, if 50 Cent by accidentally drank poison, or anyone in this room by accidentally drank poison, what would happen to them? They would die. Whether it was a mistake, what if they just did it mistakenly? They would still die. Because according to the laws of physics in our world, when you follow any law, if it's broken, there's a reaction. So hear me out here. When we break physical law, when I kick this, I could keep kicking this table. Eventually, if I kick it hard enough, I'll break myself. There's only one set of laws, no matter what. If I lie to you, all of you right now, and I tell you something, and it's a complete lie, will anything happen to me right now? Nothing will happen. As a matter of fact, if I make up some story, some really nice, spicy story, you know, I saw hellfire, right? The right mushrooms and the right hookah pipe will show you anything you want. But what I want you to understand here is in that essence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the hellfire in past tense, I want you to realize that He also told us physical law will break and laws will break here. Physical law, when someone drinks poison, they're going to die. If someone breaks moral law, when will that law be rectified? Before you go to Day of Judgment, that person said, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. He comes up with the point, there's no way that I'm going to backbite about that guy and just get away with it. And that's where Muslims come in. Maliki yawmiddin, the master owner of the Day of Judgment. That's where hellfire comes in. So when anyone says to you, oh, there's going to be fire and a pit, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينٍ بِشِمَالٍ. This is not a story, friends. I gave you the first 3 ayahs of Surah Yusuf today. What was the 4th ayah? نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. Friends, these aren't stories to get you to do what your parents want. So when I visit these ayat, I would like you to understand this is the manifestation of physical law being broken. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me 5 senses and I used them to do good or bad. I will have to pay for what I used. That is a rational, clear, and emotional statement that if I don't follow the laws of moral code of a human being, the fitrah of a human being, undoubtedly what will happen? I will have to pay the piper. That day is the Day of Judgment. Now, Wow, that we start this very specific journey, I need you to follow along. We're now going to open a second section of Quran, Surah 39. Now the real talk is going to start. In Surah 39, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts in the 52nd verse. Now I'm praying that you can follow along with me. If you can't, then it's fine. 52nd verse, if you want to come along with me, this is really important. Friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. Buckle up. I prepared at least to give this talk for an hour if I was going to give it somewhere else. I over-prepared. So we're going to move, but you're going to see that this is not an abyss. Abysses are unknown. This place is known. It is real and it is alive. And it asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Qaf, هَلْ مِن مَزِيد? Are there any more? So, before we talk about the brink of hellfire, I ask you one question. Regardless of age, gender, race, madhab, aqidah, whether you're a good person or a bad person, what is the single most sought after thing that takes you to hell? Think about it, friends. What is it? Do people seek shirk? Do people seek arrogance? Money. Power comes through money. This is fair though. It's fair. Good job. If someone said we seek women, quite frankly, it's a small period of your life. If someone said we seek fame, we seek fame through what you say? Get rich or? Money, cash? We're in the dirty south, son. Buckhead. Don't talk to me about y'all don't know. Let me tell you about Young Money Millionaire. Here's the issue now. This pursuit of money, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear to us in ayah number 52, and we're going to go up to 72, Surah Zumar, Surah number 39, ayah 52. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We seek refuge with Allah from shaitan, the accursed, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. أَوَلَمْ يَعْلَمُوا? Aren't they aware? Do they not know? أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives His rizq, finance, money, cash, the Benjamins, the dead presidents, to whom He wills. وَيَقْدِرُ. And He restricts from who He wants. So the number one component that's going to get us to the abyss of hell is something that's written. The hadith of Jibreel makes this very clean. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written the rizq. Someone will not be able to die until he receives all of the rizq. Now I need you to separate this. Money that I put in my pocket is not in my rizq. I could literally have put $150 in my pocket and someone could have robbed me. It's not in my rizq. So the food, the sustenance that's meant to come to me will come to me, and Allah gives unbelievably to whom He wills, and He holds from whom He wills. So the number one thing that gets us into the hellfire isn't worth playing the game for. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, in this rat race of money, cash, and everything that we pursue to get to that fame, to the power, all of that is a sign for people yu'minun, who believe. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not mentioned hellfire, has not said anything. But He says the game that you all are playing, in pursuit of having someone notice you because your shape up is nice today, or because your hijab was pressed a certain way. By the way, that's going to expire in a little while. You're all going to worry about the bottom dollar. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said for people with the sign of intellect, who believe in the akhirah, they won't have this issue. Now we're going to start summarizing. Ayah number 53, 54, and 55. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ibadi, oh my slave. He starts telling you about having mercy, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah yaghfiru dhunub, that Allah wants to forgive your sins. You hear any hellfire yet? No. By the way, money's going to be a danger. I could forgive you. Turn back to me. And then He uses the word asrifu. And then He says, don't turn away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now we see here, I want you to see this exact word. When He says, La taqnatu min rahmatillah. That don't turn away from the mercy of Allah. Guys, you're gonna fall. I fall, I go, I know I can make overtime at the hospital, so you work a little bit more. But brother, you're supposed to be here. You can do more. We will slip up. Don't give up in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any mention of hell? I don't have anything yet. Let's keep moving through the ayat here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Huwal wa huwal ghafoor, and He is Rahim, giving us a chance, telling us that if we overstep our bounds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asrafu, Allah is the one who, if we have made transgressions, He's going to forgive us. Now, at ayah 55, for the first time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you tread this path, I'll forgive you. But in ayah 55, He gives us 3 excuses. And the first time that we say, أَن تَقُولَ نَفْسٍ, that, oh, lest that you might say, that your soul, what has my soul done? What have I achieved for the hereafter? And these 3 excuses come up. And I'll give it up to you to read them on your own. But I will only take one excuse. He says in the third, in ayah number 57, He says, أَوْ تَقُولَ لَوْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ هَدَانِي. Or someone would say, man, I just wish God had guided me. Up to now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't showed our true colors. But when we make the mistake of saying, Allah will guide me, I'll wear hijab, I'll follow Islam, I'll do what Allah wants me to do, later on, if Allah wants, there's your first excuse. And this is what I think is so dynamic about Qur'an. Before telling you hell, fire, burning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, these are the excuses that you are going to give me, and these excuses won't hold firm. Finally, in ayah number 58, the last result, the guy lived his whole life, he did whatever he wanted. He went, he did. And he came, and now he sees. He sees the adhab, he sees the punishment. He sees the fire, and he says, Ya laytani. He says, Ya laytani kuntu turaba. That, oh, I wish I was nothing. Friends, I want you to listen to that here, close to Buckhead. I want you to listen to that, because everything they say, everything that they dignify and sanctify is how amazing they are, how beautiful they are, how powerful they are. On that day when they have transgressed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, God would guide me when He wants to, what do they say? Had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me, had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved me, I wouldn't be here. Then they say, أَوْ تَقُولَ حِينَ تَرَى الْعَذَابِ. When they see the adhab, then fire becomes fire and water becomes water. Meaning all of the excuses of Allah will forgive me, God knows what's in my heart, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what was going to happen to me, there's no sunnah, everything's da'if, we only follow Qur'an. Like all of these big intellectual decisions that we have now, or the hadith are all da'if. You really think that guy believes that? You really think that guy he's going to take that? Look, Allah, I sorted it out, I figured it out. 600 years of scholarship didn't get it. I've sorted it out. No, these are excuses to stay away. So we paint one picture, and I said I would point out 9 things. So this person comes, Surah 69, Surah 39, and also we have, these are all the places that we're visiting. We have this person who comes up to the brink, and the book is handed to him. His checks and balances are done every day. Last night at 2 o'clock when no one was looking, everything was written down. And in Surah Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, لا يغادر, that they will be handed this kitab, صغيرة ولا كبيرة. And they'll see in this book there wasn't anything tiny or anything big. Everything is written here. When I turned to that girl and I said, man, why does she get it? And I mocked that person, everything was written. And the book will be handed to them. And they will say, I wish that I never was. All the arrogance, all the beauty, everything that they had, and they will be handed their book. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will instruct to the angels, خُذُوهُ فَغُلُّوهُ, that they will be strapped together. Their feet will be bound, not their face. Because what do you treasure the most? Your face. Of course, if anything, he's a very dignified person. The feet will be bound together and they'll be thrown hell first. Face first into the hellfire. And this person will say, Oh Allah, why didn't you give me a chance? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reconstruct the earth. It won't be a plasma screen. He will reconstruct the earth You will watch yourself sitting at that lecture, sitting at that moment where you're driving in your car, you're listening to a CD, and it makes sense, and you're like, man, maybe I should do the right thing. Maybe I should follow what this Shaykh is saying on his cassette. And Allah will say, you didn't get the chance? And the people will say, Allah, we didn't understand, it was in Arabic. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reconstruct the earth and say, you didn't understand? وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ. You didn't have someone who spoke your language? You didn't have someone who came and said, money, cash? You didn't have someone who came and said, look guys, we really need to wake up now. The going's getting tough. And in this time, they'll be thrown into the hellfire. And at this moment, they will pass through 3 levels of fire. And as they fall, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for those of you who are medically oriented, points out that the skin will burn immediately. The first layer of skin will burn. I want you to think about this, that the Quran is pointing this out. That inside the skin there will be a burning. What part of the skin is going to burn away? There's 7 layers of skin on your hands, 2 layers of skin, 5 layers of skin on your face, and 2 around your eyes. This is really important. Remember, I'm not here to scare you. I want you to leave here and say, how does he know that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the science. 7 layers of skin here, 5 layers of skin here, 2 layers of skin here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the subcutaneous, the top layers of skin will be burned off. When you get a little paper cut, what happens? The nerve, it stings a lot more when you even blow on it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out that the skin will burn. And then when they reach to the bottom, where the skin that protects, you know when you get a small paper cut and you blow on it, and that stings? When that area of the skin is opened up, the punishment will be stopped. It will be held. They will continue to burn just like this. And then the ayat of Surah Mulk come to pass. And this is something we didn't read in the ayahs, but it's up to 72. So the people just like this auditorium, the shayateen will gather inside who are being tortured. But the person who's meant to be tortured will come to the bottom of a pit. And above will be those who are instructed to torture him. And I want you to put yourself there. They're waiting, they're fiending. They want to be amongst those who can have a peace because they've been told, those who transgress the law, you will torture them. And one of them will come and say, Alam ya'tikum rusulun? Didn't someone come and tell you about all this stuff? Didn't someone come and say, look, we're supposed to follow this religion. Yes, you might not like some of the rules, but at the end of the day, it's going to work out. And the person will utter the words which are uttered throughout our hearts every time we hear them. So the angel will come and say, didn't somebody tell you this was going to go down? And the person will say, قالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. قالوا لو كنا. If we had just maybe نسمع, listened, أو نعقل, just thought, ما كنا في أصحاب السعير. And upon the utterance of these words, they're waiting. And they want to entertain you. They want to have some part of what they've been waiting for. And I won't share the punishments of the hellfire. I will share 9 punishments of this world. So in looking through various tafasir, some of the ulama who were interested in zoology wrote on the poisons of this world. So everything I'm mentioning to you is not existent in hell first. You're going to see it here. And then you do the math. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, known to man right now, 9 types of poison in 9 different animals. We'll take one animal. One of the animals is called the spitting cobra. This spitting cobra can grow 10 to 14 feet. The interesting part of this cobra, and the head of the cobra is about the size of a tennis ball, from a 10 foot, that's the length of a basketball hoop, it can spit acidic venom directly into your eyes. And that's kind of crazy. How does that animal know where your eyes are? Snakes barely have a pupil and exactly spits into your eyes from 10 feet. Once that acid, and I've seen this in Vegas, that if specific acid mixes with your eye, the top of your eye starts to burn off. And remember, the snake's not going to eat you, friends. You are blind, and a 14-foot black cobra is just going around you. And your eyes, this is this world, friends. A cousin of this is the viper. It's the longest toothed snake in the world. It's 1.5 inches is its fang. When it bites any part of the skin, it bites the skin and steps off. And the amount of acid that's secreted from it melts through the first 5 layers of fat, not skin. I've actually seen in the hospital, patients who come in, they have gaping holes. What happened? A viper bit him. It's like, a viper did that? There's a chunk of his flesh missing. Not enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes to us the creatures of the hellfire to be serpent-like lizards. Serpent-like lizards. So this is to me comparable to, can anyone guess what it's comparable to? Komodo dragon, perfect. The Komodo dragon has something that they found out, this was just a 1.5 years ago. Everyone believed that the Komodo dragon had venom. They did an MRI in the head of a Komodo dragon, it doesn't have venom. We did this once. What does it have? Komodo dragons do a very simple ambush technique. They will run up to you and they will bite you. Now put yourself in the burning fire. They will bite you and 9 of them will walk away. The bacteria found in their saliva decays your flesh slowly. And there's something called, you know when you take a lot of Advil, they say don't play a lot of sports, you could bleed out. It bleeds you out. So you get this little cut and you're like, oh wow, a Komodo dragon. And you start to bleed, and it bleeds, and the 2nd day goes by, and the 3rd day goes by, and the 5th, and it keeps bleeding, and now it gets abscessy and pussy. And by this time, this is all found in a documentary. You can watch it in Life. It's the new one. They explain that when the animal reaches the 6th or 7th day, it keels over. The venom is not a venom, it's a bacteria. And when it's alive, withering and shaking on the ground, it will see fuzzy creatures in the distance because the blood, it's kind of going out of the frontal lobe, the brain, and it sees from the distance 9 creatures coming, 14 feet in length, 275 pounds in weight. And they come and they toy with their prey before they eat it. They lick it, they toss it around a little bit, but you're still alive. Remember the scenes in Jurassic Park when they said the raptors come and cut here and they eat it? These are things that are alive today. And after you are literally, because they start from the center of the body, they eat starting from the intestinal tract. You can live without your intestines. Narrated in the books of Tirmidhi, and we'll end on this hadith. A man will come into the hellfire, be tortured. He will accept his mistake. His intestinal tract will be removed. Remember Braveheart style? Will be removed from his body. And it'll be made like a noose around his neck. And he will be dragged and followed like a dog through the hellfire. And the people, while they're being tortured, and this is the characteristic of a Jahannami, he's being tortured and he'll say, yo, what did that guy do? What did he do to have such a humiliating, his punishment is being dragged around. And the angels will tell him, that is the person who said something and didn't follow what he said. And he will be dragged around with his own intestines. Why do I tell you this? When those animals eat your intestines first, you're alive. And you feel serrated edged teeth come in. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not to let you leave here and be like, oh, okay, that was kind of scary, but I could watch a $100 million movie and get a lot more scared than this. That's my issue. They are mocking us, friends. The latest ghost flick is called, Sheikhna, you know the name of the movie? Jinn. Jinn. The opening scene to this movie is, Allah created angels from light. Allah created man from clay. Allah created fire so he could make jinn. And they have a whole horror film. Friends, they're toying with us. This is real. The rest of their stuff and their Resident Evils and that's not real. That's where, when you get diluted and you're like, well, the talk wasn't scary, I didn't get it. No, the talk shouldn't be scary. The talk is real. But there's only one great part of this. 114 surahs in the Quran. And find this out. Look at it. Find it out. I never got to ayah 72. I really wanted to do it. Please read it. Please read it. Abwaba Jahannam. The most amazing part of this book, and anyone who pulls out to you and says, hellfire, hellfire, look you guys, our book says about love, 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 and I'll be done just in a minute. Then tell them, you know that every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Jahannam, what word precedes Jahannam? Jannah. And moreover, in Surah Dukhan, Surah 44, whenever you hear the word, it's Jahannam comes a lot. As many times as it comes in 44, immediately after it and before it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Jannah. And I only ask you to think about one thing. Do you genuinely want a book that only says, good job? Do you want mom and dad who only say, good job, you did great in school? But when you sleep in that day and you don't get up to go to class, they don't wake you up. Do you genuinely think a book that only came with motivation was going to be enough? Friends, think about that. Then why aren't we nice to our parents? Why do we have to feel bad and then be nice to them? Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened doors of mercy. And I'm very happy this talk happened first. Because the description, the magnitude of description of the hellfire is smaller compared to Raditu Ya Rabbi, Hadith 1883, Riyadh al-Salihin, where the description of Jannah comes to pass. So know this much, that this hellfire that we talk about, it's already done. Let's find out what we're going to do about it. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ So where are we headed? La ilaha illa anta subhanak inni kuntu min al-zalimin. All that is clean and pure is from Allah. Know that this much will not be enough for you. Seek out the books that tell you about both. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give people who can rhyme words, mansions, people who pray, fast, love, fulfill the rights of what He wants. What can He give them? Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, give as much attention as you can to the Shaykh. I'm going to really appreciate it as well. Brothers who are standing, Allah make you stand less on the Day of Judgment. When you wait, sisters, when you wait on the Day of Judgment, may Allah make you stand less, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, on the Day of Judgment, when we have to stand for 50,000 years. Wassalamu alaikum.